Wife killer! It was like waking up from a bad dream, only a little worse. Even though I didn't have a blindfold over my eyes, I couldn't see anything. I was all curled up and lying on my side. My hands were bound in front of me by something that cut into my wrists. It was sharper and not as bulky as the rope. My feet were bound as well, but I couldn't tell anything else since I was still wearing my work boots. It didn't take a genius to figure out that I was in the trunk of a car. My brain was working overtime, but to no avail. I had a headache and the back of my head hurt like hell. The struggle made me uncomfortable. There was nothing I could do. There was no gag in my mouth, but there didn't seem to be any good reason to scream. The car rumbled over some railroad tracks, causing me to be thrown slightly, and I hit my head and elbow on something hard. Heck, I was in the trunk of the car, so it could have been anything. After the second crossing of the railroad tracks, I felt the car turn onto a gravel road. It was rougher there than the pavement and much noisier. I moved to the back of the trunk as the car began to climb the slope. My brain kicked into gear. Where in this neighborhood are there dirt roads leading uphill? Nothing was clicking, and I wasn't finding any answers. It only took a few minutes before the road went from gravel to completely uneven. It was no longer a road, but a trail. Everything hurt now. Every pebble in the road left another bruise when I hit it. And then it went quiet. The car had stopped, and the engine was off. My body was pressed against the back of the trunk. I was no longer trying to figure out where I was. Now I was just thinking about what was going to happen next. My brain was working at full capacity, but it seemed unwise for me to report it. I waited in silence until I heard the trunk lock click. The driver's door opened and closed. Another door followed. There were two? I opened my eyes just enough to see a dim light coming through the cracked trunk lid. It wasn't electric light, but something more natural. The trunk lid suddenly opened, and the flashlight light hit me right in the face. I squinted, reacting to the bright light, so I couldn't pretend not to react anymore. I tried to turn away from the light while my eyes got used to it. It didn't work. "Okay, asshole. Get out of the trunk." I knew right away that whoever this guy was, he wasn't my friend. I struggled a little bit, but I couldn't lift myself up enough to get out of my mini prison. "You're kidding, right? There's no way I'm getting out of here like this." My eyes were still not used to my surroundings due to the constant light hitting my face. I heard my captor let out a few grunts mixed with soft curses and cut the plastic straps binding my legs. In an unceremonious move, he threw my legs over the back of the car almost to the ground. He stepped back a little and shined a flashlight under my feet. When I got out of the car, I noticed there was only one guy there. There was a shovel leaning against the side of the car. I quickly assumed it was lying in the back seat of the car. It was a large man, over 180 centimeters tall and weighing at least 115 pounds. I had seen him before, but couldn't remember where exactly. He had a flashlight in his left hand and a revolver in his right hand. It looked like a .38 caliber special police pistol, not weighty enough to be a .357. The big brute pointed the flashlight beam up the slope where a chain was strung across the country road. I recognized it. It was the fire trail that led to the top of Neversink Mountain to the ranger station. I looked over my shoulder and saw the city lights. The whole town was visible from here, and it was beautiful at night. The fire trail leading to the top was closed to the public. I stood on the mountain road with my hands tied in front of me and a gun pointed at my back. I tried to figure out what I had done to piss this guy off, but to no avail. He had turned off the flashlight, and now all we had was moonlight. That was the warm glow I could see through the crack in the trunk lid. The big man slipped the flashlight into his jacket pocket and picked up the shovel. He waved the gun in my direction and mumbled one word: "Move!" The moonlight was bright enough to make it easy to follow the fire trail. Every now and then the clouds or trees would make it darker, but never dark enough to stop us from walking. The path went uphill, and it was difficult. I took my mind off my predicament and caught myself trying to figure out how the park employees were getting their cars around on this damn road. The big guy kept tripping over rocks on the path, and each time it was accompanied by swearing. Interestingly, he was big but clumsy. In some places, fallen leaves made the surface of the path slippery, which seemed to annoy my captor even more. "Stop!" This sudden command was followed by another. "Move!" The flashlight came back on and shone to the right. Right in front of us was a sort of flat area, as flat as could be expected given the mountainous terrain. The hole in the ground was only a few meters away. It was a little clearer now. I had a rough idea of what awaited me, but I still didn't understand why. It was a horrible hole. It wasn't square and was only about 1.5 meters deep at one end and maybe a little less than 1 meter at the other. In the middle of the hole lay a large rock. What kind of idiot would dare to dig a grave on the rockiest hill in the whole damn county? It wasn't just stone, it was granite. There were hundreds of coal seams in the area that would be very easy to dig in. The big guy held a flashlight and shovel in his left hand and a gun in his right. He gestured for me to move closer to the hole, and I decided that wasn't a good idea. There had to be an alternative. He was right behind me as I slowly made my way forward. Just when I got the feeling I was about to be pushed, I leaned over, turned, and lunged at him. I tried to stand a little behind him so I could push him off. My plans were ruined by an extremely loud gunshot and a searing pain in the right side of my chest. The asshole shot me as I would have fallen into the hole. I didn't fall. I just sat on my ass pretty hard. I noticed that trying to breathe wasn't a good idea. What the hell was the alternative? While I was lamenting my bad luck, I noticed the big guy swearing and moaning at the same time. It looked like I'd managed to throw him into the pit instead of myself. In great pain, I bent down and examined the bottom of the place where I was going to die. My opponent had obviously broken his ankle when he fell into my grave. He was holding onto his right leg and sort of swaying back and forth. There was a flashlight lying on the ground next to him, which illuminated the pit from within with an eerie light. It was an opportunity, but an opportunity to do what? There was no way I could run away with a hole in my chest. I could barely breathe, let alone walk. On the other hand, there was no way he could chase me with a sore ankle. I assumed it was broken. Perhaps it was just a sprain. He still had the gun down somewhere. This was not good. Since the gun was now my biggest problem, I felt I had to do something about it. Trying to get to my feet caused me to cough up a huge amount of blood. It filled my mouth and flowed down my chin. My breathing was intermittent. There was no way in hell I could even think about taking a deep breath. I hesitated at the edge of the hole for a moment and then leapt forward, my feet right at his head. I was glad I was still wearing my work boots. My left foot went straight for the big guy's head, but my right boot landed on his neck. I heard a loud crack and found myself lying on top of him. It hurt like hell. It hurt when I moved, and it hurt when I coughed, and I coughed a lot. The flashlight was nearby, and it was the first thing I grabbed. The big guy was being quiet. He wasn't cursing or moaning anymore. I shined the flashlight in his face. There was no reaction. I didn't check for a pulse, but I assumed I'd either killed him or rendered him unconscious. Either way, it was a good thing. The light also clearly showed the bright red blood I'd poured on myself and the big beast. I knew what that bright color meant. I had a hole in my lung. If I didn't get help soon, I would choke on my own blood. I grabbed my gun, which was lying next to the flashlight, and then rummaged through the big man's pockets until I found my cell phone and another disposable cell phone. Getting out of the hole was easier than I thought. I simply stepped over his body to a large rock at the edge and then onto solid ground. It was only a few meters to the trail. I sat down, leaning my back against one of the trees growing on the hill, and pulled out my cell phone. 911, what's your emergency? Hello. I'm on the Neversink Mountain Fire Trail and I need help. Sir, this area is off limits to the public. Access is for park personnel only. Her voice was young and she sounded like she was trying her best to be professional. I know that. I've been shot and there's a dead man lying on the ground next to me. I need an ambulance and the police. I don't need a lecture on the rules of personal property." There was a short pause on the other end of the line. Sir, an ambulance crew has been dispatched to your location. I'm also notifying the local and county police. Please keep your cell phone on. It will help us find you." "Sir? Sir? 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 Are you there? Are you all right?" "No, God damn it! I'm not okay. I've been shot. I'm gonna hang up now." Well, that little episode ended with another coughing fit. Most of the liquid that came out of my mouth dripped onto my jacket. I had no doubt that it was bright red blood. I made a conscious effort to try to breathe evenly, which was no easy task given the pain. Everything was swimming in front of my eyes, and I could also tell I was sweating like crazy. The cool night air felt cold when it touched my damp skin. I had a choice: wallow in my pain and misery, or try to figure out what the hell was going on. This guy had put in a lot of effort. There had to be a good reason for what he did. It wasn't random, it was planned. Why did he have a disposable cell phone? I pulled his cell phone out of my pocket and stared at it for a long time. It was going to answer all the questions. Someone else was involved, and the call log would tell me exactly who. Now was not a good time to pull out my phone. I was too weak and out of it. I carefully put it back in my jacket pocket. I was just starting to think about other people who might have been interested in my demise when I heard sirens howling in the distance. Who had a grudge, or who might have benefited from my disappearance? If it was for insurance purposes, the big beast wouldn't be trying to hide my corpse. They would have needed the corpse to get the death benefit. It had to be something else. But what? The sirens howled louder. I didn't know how much time had actually passed, but they seemed to be responding better than I expected. The flashing beacons flickered on and off between the trees as the car climbed the hill. I hoped the medics would be the first to show up. I shined my flashlight down the trail and saw the big beast's car about 100 yards away. If I could see the car, the police and medics could see me. 2 minutes later, an ambulance showed up. The last thing I remembered was dropping the flashlight. I woke up with a headache. My eyes were still closed, but my head hurt terribly. I was trying to push all thoughts away and figure out where I was when I decided it would be faster if I looked around. Once I squinted around a bit, I realized the answer and mentally sighed in relief. The first thing I noticed were the mint green walls, but that was followed by the hospital smell. As I inhaled, the right side of my chest ached. It brought me back to reality very quickly. I remembered the shooting, the mountain, and the ride in the trunk of the car. It wasn't a dream. It was all real, but that didn't make it any better. I was terribly thirsty, but my mouth felt disgusting. When I tried to put my hand to my mouth, I realized there was an IV or some kind of tube attached to it. I couldn't touch my mouth anyway because I had a plastic mask over my face. It was breathing for me, or at least helping me breathe. "Dad, you're awake. Welcome back. Welcome back to the real world." Turning my head at the voice, I squinted and saw my son, Brian. "What the hell are you doing here? Why aren't you in school?" Brian was in his senior year at the University of Pennsylvania, and I didn't want him to miss class, especially since I was paying for his tuition. "It's okay. I needed a break. I took a week off. Relax." I took a quick look around the room. It was small, and it didn't look like I was sharing it with anyone else. There were no flowers, thank God, but there were 3 Mylar balls floating in one corner under the ceiling. I finished looking around and looked at the balloons again. "Where did they come from?" Brian grinned and smiled. "Oompa Loompa brought them over. She comes in here twice a day and brings a balloon each time." I tried to laugh, but I had to cut my laughter short. "Who the hell is an Oompa Loompa?" "I don't know, Daddy. I've never seen her before. She's about 1.5 meters tall and the same width. Wears a blue uniform. At first I thought she was some kind of peppermint girl or something." "You mean a call girl?" "Yeah, that's what I thought." So much for polite conversation. I started thinking about my situation again. There were questions I needed answers to. I noticed that Brian made some sort of sign to one of the nurses who passed by. I assumed they were looking forward to my resurrection. Brian, you wouldn't happen to know what's wrong with me, would you? Dad, you've been shot. You've got, let's see. My son was trying to find something on the tablet at the foot of the bed. Oh, here it is. You have a pneumothorax. In English, please. You have a hole in your right lung where some guy shot you. Yeah. Now that you mention it, I seem to remember. For a few moments, we both sat in silence. I gathered my thoughts and assumed my son was patiently waiting for the doctor to arrive. How long have I been here? More than 2 days. Damn. It must have been a lot worse than I thought. Where's your mom? Why isn't she here? His silence was deafening. I was about to repeat the question, but decided not to. I just looked at him. I watched my son fidget in his chair for a few moments before answering. She's in jail, Dad. Grandpa Simmons is trying to bail her out, but he's not having much luck. That doesn't make sense. Why is your mom in jail? Dad, she's being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, as well as half a dozen other crimes. She's also charged with the death of that guy you trampled in that hole. What the hell are you talking about? Who was she trying to kill? The guy who kidnapped me? No. You killed the guy, but she's being blamed for his death because she hired him to kill you. One of the machines behind me beeped, and Nurse Ratchet, or her sister, ran into the room. The news of what my son had unloaded on me had done wonders for my blood pressure. She gestured for Brian to leave and then gave me some kind of injection. Before the injection worked, I coughed into the mask I had on my face. It made a terrible mess. I decided to relax a bit, and the shot she gave me really helped. About this time, a doctor came into the room and gave me a cursory examination. He was checking everything as fast as he could, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to take a nap, just a short one. I'm not sure how much time passed before I opened my eyes again. It was darker, and the hospital corridors seemed quieter. I looked around the room. In the corner now lay 4 mylar balls. An unfamiliar man in a dark suit sat in the chair where Brian had sat before. He was reading a magazine, but he also looked bored. I took advantage of the lull to examine my body. In addition to the IV in my arm, I had some kind of tube in my chest that looked like it was pumping something out. A very sore spot in the middle of my throat, just below my caddy, was covered by a bandage. My entire torso was wrapped in bandages or gauze. Instead of a mask, my face had a plastic tube inserted into my nose. It seemed to help me breathe. The machines made no sound, just something buzzing. Hey there, my name is Stan Trumbull. What's your name? Mr. Suit seemed pleased to see me awake. I got the feeling he'd been here for a while. So, I'm Detective Daniel Green. I heard you were awake and I was hoping to give you a few minutes. Okay, but don't say anything to piss me off or I'll get another shot of La La Land. He moved his chair closer to the hospital bed. Can I get something to drink? No. Damn it, that was an expletive. Here. Detective Green unwrapped a pill that was on the table next to the bed and put it in my mouth. They specifically said no liquids. It had a nice sweet taste in my mouth, but a cold beer would taste even better. Mr. Trumbull, did you know the man who took you to Neversink Mountain 3 days ago? No, he seemed familiar, but I don't remember ever meeting him before. My son said I killed him. Yeah, that's right. Broken neck. I didn't mean to kill him, I just wanted to get out of here. Don't worry about it. No one holds you responsible for his death. My son also said you blame my wife for his death. Is that correct? Yes, but we can discuss all this later. The answer didn't make me happy, but I believed he didn't just phrase it that way. So who the hell was this guy and why was I there? His name was Carmine Nunizzo. He was Richard Herring's brother-in-law. You know Dick Herring? Of course I do. Everybody knows Dick Herring, the mattress king. My wife Darlene works for him. As soon as those words came out of my mouth, I had an epiphany. Darlene has worked at Herring Bedding for almost 10 years. For the first few years, she complained constantly about Richard. He was a bad manager, a worthless boss, and a libertine. For the last year or so, she hadn't said anything about him at all. That should have been the first clue. She started working overtime at the store because they were forced to cut back on staff. She also started attending some seminars and business expos that were held nearby. Some of them were held at night. Up until now, I hadn't thought about any of this. I trusted her completely. Mr. Trumbull, do you see where I'm going with this, or do I need to be more specific? No. Unfortunately, I think I do. I don't like it, but I understand. I pointed to the bedside table, and Detective Green unwrapped another lollipop for me. Detective, I understand the where, when, and who, but can you explain to me why? Herring betting is falling apart. Richard Herring is broke. Your life is insured for over $2 million. Mr. Herring and your wife plan to keep the company alive with the insurance money it would receive after your death. But how were they going to collect if they buried my body? Your grave was supposed to be discovered by an ornithological team sometime next week. There are 2 migrations through the area twice a year, and bird-watching groups are allowed to climb the mountain during that time. How did you find out about all this? Did they come forward and confess? Not exactly. The cell phone you took off Carmine's body had a list of calls he made to his brother-in-law and your wife. We checked the calls from Dick Herring's cell phone as well as your wife's. It turned out to be pretty interesting. Snap, are you telling me you have enough information from those cell phones to charge my wife with murder? No. We got all that from Mr. Herring. When he found out that he was going to be charged with the murder of his brother-in-law and also the attempted murder of you, he couldn't start talking fast enough. He had a lawyer, and he cut a deal before your wife realized what was going on. Once she found out Herring had turned her back on her, she confessed to everything and tried to blame him. She decided to plead guilty to avoid a trial, but she's probably going to get a harsher punishment than Herring. Well, that totally sucks for her. Was it his idea, or was it her idea to kill me? We don't know. We may never know. On the other hand, you're still alive. Do you really need anything from me, Detective Green? No, not really. I wanted to make sure you were okay, and also to inform you of what happened. I'd rather you hear it from me than from the papers. Do you have any other questions? I thought for a few moments. Yeah. Who the hell brings me these balloons? The man in the suit laughed softly. Her name is Donna, and she said that if you woke up, I should tell you, and that her last name was Dumbass. I looked at him questioningly, and he smiled. That's the 911 operator who took your call. She said you called her a dumbass, and she realized she was acting accordingly at the time. She was new on the job and felt very uncomfortable about saying something stupid. He must have left the room right after that, because the next thing I knew it was dawning on me. Brian was there again and helped me with my first tray of food. Darlene had been denied bail and was due to be sentenced at the end of the month. Dick Herring was released on bail and disappeared. His business was going under and he had no family. That was the day I finally met Donna Dumbfuck. She was short, stocky, and full of life. Although she was a registered nurse, she had trouble getting a job because of her weight. She couldn't work on an ambulance crew because of the physical agility requirements. The best thing to do was to call 911. I was released from the hospital 3 days later, but required home care for another 2 weeks. Donna was listed as a visiting nurse, and I was able to arrange for her to take care of me. Darlene was sentenced to 10 years, but Brian said she would probably be out in 8. I never got to see her before she was sent to Muncie. She never tried to contact me, and I wasn't going to call her. Poor Brian got caught in the middle of things, and I promised not to blame him for anything. 2 weeks later, I filed for divorce. Donna made macaroni and cheese for dinner. The end.